Hi, welcome to my blog and YouTube channel. Those pictures, places, events, and people. Who knows, you might one of them. I'm Joseph Saez. Join us. I feature in this blog the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Square of Miracles, which is the heart of Pisa. On 30th May 2020, the monumental complex reopened its door to the public in compliance with the government guidelines. I visited the Leaning Tower of Pisa and the Square of Miracle, which is the heart of Pisa. As a first-time guest, we know the post-lockdown measure put in place within the attraction, ensuring maximum safety and security. Pisa is a city and commune in Tuscany, central Italy, straddling the Arno before it empties into the Ligurian Sea. It is the capital city of the province of Pisa, although Pisa is known worldwide for its Leaning Tower, or the bell tower of the city's cathedral. The city of over 91,104 residents, around 200,000 with the metropolitan area, contains more than 20 other historic churches, several medieval palaces, and various bridges across the Arno. Much of the city's architecture was financed from its history as one of the Italian maritime republics. The city is also home to the University of Pisa, which has a history going back to the 12th century and also has the Scuola Normale Superiore di Pisa, founded by Napoleon in 1810, and its offshoot, the San Anna School of Advanced Study, as the best sanctioned superior graduate school in Italy. The Square of Miracle is the heart of Pisa. The Campo del Miracoli in Pisa, the Square of Miracles in English, was proclaimed a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1987. The square is not located right smack in the center of the city as you might imagine, but along the northwestern edge, along the city fortified wall, almost out of the center. This is where space was available back in 1094 or 1094, when construction was first started on the cathedral. Since the times of the Etruscans, the three structures found in the piazza have been considered central to religious life, symbolizing the main stages of a human life: the Baptistery represent birds. The Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta life, and the Camposanto, of course, alludes to death. What about the Tower of Pisa? Well, we haven't forgotten it. But the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa is actually considered a part of the cathedral, since it is really its bell tower. The square is surrounded by a beautiful green lawn where tourists and university students often lie down and relax in this amazing setting despite all the signs that say to keep up. As in most cities, the square was called Pisa del Duomo until Italian writer and poet Gabriele D'Annunzio described the square as the Prato de Miracoli or Meadow of Miracles. In his novel Forse Scesi Forse Sceno, year 1910, the square is now simply known as the Campo de Miracoli, which is literally the field of miracles. Construction of the Duomo began in the 11th century and, after many changes, was actually only completed in the 19th century when the architects Alessandro Gherardesca give the square its final present appearance. A few historical notes. The square first started taking shape in year 1064 with the creation of the centerpiece of the entire complex, the cathedral dedicated to Santa Maria Assunta. The cathedral symbolized the maximum expression of Pisan Romanesque architecture, influenced at the same times by various stylistic elements. At the time, Pisa was a maritime republic from the 11th through 15th centuries, and sailors traveled around the Arab world and remained smitten by all the beautiful things they saw. Years later, the enlargement of the fortified wall began. The church at the beginning wasn't inside the walls, and the building of the Baptistery began only in 1152 year. The Baptistery was located directly in front of the cathedral with a diameter equal to the facades of the cathedral. The Cathedral Museum of Pisa, or Museo dell'Opera del Duomo, display original artwork from the famous cathedral, Baptistery, and Leaning Tower of Pisa. Many of the original sculpture of the Duomo, Baptistery, and Camposanto Cemetery in Pisa are now preserved in the relatively small Cathedral Museum of Pisa. In addition to numerous original Gothic and Renaissance sculpture, are several further decorative elements, including the original bronze doors from the transcript and the Islamic griffon that once crowned the Duomo. The museum also has a small but exquisite collection of liturgical furnishings, images, vestments, vessels, reliquaries, and books on display. The museum reopened in 2019 after a modernization and reorganization of the contents of the museum. It now houses almost exclusively items directly associated with the cathedral and related building on Pisa's Field of Miracles. The museum has only 25 small rooms and is easy to enjoy. One of the first sights is the impressive 12th century bronze Saint Renerius door, year 1180, by Bonanno Pisano, that originally provided access to the transept of the cathedral. The present door, facing the Leaning Tower, is a copy. The three bronze doors by Bonanno in the western facades of the cathedral were destroyed by fire in year 1595. These doors were popular in the Romanesque period from Byzantium to northern Italy. A beautiful one is the German city Hildesheim. It mostly shows the life of Christ in 24 panels. Is devoted to foreign influence on the early cathedral as a reminder that Pisa of the Middle Ages was a very international city. The Baptistery. The works for the realization of the Baptistery, the biggest in Italy, started in year 1152 under supervision of the architect Diotislavi. The structure is set in front of the cathedral and was entirely revisited by Nicola Pisano and his son Giovanni around the mid-13th century. They changed the baptistry by adding Gothic elements, alades, and a cupola. In the middle of the baptistry, the baptismal font by Giotto Bigarelli is set center stage, with natural illumination coming from a hole in the ceiling, now covered by the cupola. The pulpit by Nicola Pisano, year 1255 to 1260, has story from Christ's life on the 5 panels, while the columns represents the virtues. We can easily notice a classical style in the work, and for this reason, Nicola Pisano is considered by many as a precursor to the Renaissance. The portal facing the facades of the cathedral is flanked by 2 classical columns, while the inner jambs are executed in Byzantine style. The lintel is divided in 2 tiers. The lower one depicts several episodes in the life of Saint John the Baptist, while the upper one shows Christ between the Madonna and Saint John the Baptist, flanked by angels and the evangelists. The interior is overwhelming and lacks decoration. The octagonal font at the center dates from year 1246 and was made by Giotto Bigarelli da Como. The bronze sculpture of Saint John the Baptist at the center of the font is a work by Italo Griselli, constructed on the same unstable sand as the tower and cathedral. The baptistery leans 0.6 degrees toward the cathedral. Originally, the shape of the baptistery, according to the project by Diotislavi, was different. It was perhaps similar to the Church of Holy Sepulchre in Pisa, with its pyramidal roof. After the death of the architect Nicola Pisano, continued the work, changing the style to the more modern Gothic one. Also, an external roof was added, giving the shape of a cupola. As a side effect of two roofs, the pyramidal inner one and the dome external one. The interior is acoustically perfect, making of the space a resonating chamber. The exterior of the dome is clad with lead sheets on each side facing the cathedral and red tiles on its west side facing the sea, giving a half gray and a half red appearance from the south. The graveyard, or Camposanto. The graveyard is an ancient monumental cemetery set on the north side of the Square of Miracles. Began in year 1277 by the architect Giovanni di Simeon. It is a rectangular structure with an inner cloister with Gothic arcades. As ancient tradition would have it, the gravest was built on dirt carried back from the Holy Land, in particular from the place where Jesus was crucified. Within the cloister, you find many sarcophagi and Roman graves, used exclusively for the burial of prestigious men. While beneath the floors are graves of the nobles of Pisa. Here, you can admire a lot of artworks, including the pulpit by Giovanni Pisano, the Lamb by Galileo Galilei, fresco by Benozzo Guzzoli and Buonamico, Bupalmaco with the famous Triumph of Death, a tabernacle by the Delia Probia, and many more. Camposanto can be literally translated as holy field because it is said to have been built around a shipload of sacred soil from Golgotha, brought back to Pisa from the Third Crusade by Ubaldo Lanfranchi, Archbishop of Pisa, in the 12th century. A legend claims that body buried in the ground will not rot in just 24 hours. The burial ground lies over the ruins of the old Baptistery of the Church of Santa Reparata, the church that once stood where the cathedral now stands. The term monumental serves to differentiate it from the later established urban cemetery in Pisa. History. The building was the fourth and last one to be raised in the cathedral square. It dates from a century after the bringing of the soil from Golgotha and was erected over the earlier burial ground. The construction of this huge oblong Gothic cloister was begun in year 1278 by the architect Giovanni di Simeon. He died in 1284 year, when Pisa suffered a defeat in the naval battle of Meloria against the Genoans. The cemetery was only completed in year 1464. It seems that the building wasn't meant to be a real cemetery, but a church called Santissima Trinita, or Most Holy Trinity, but the project changed during the construction. However, we know that the original part was the western one, and this should be, at least for a while, the mentioned church, and all the eastern part was the last to be built, finally closing the structure. This cemetery has three chapels. The oldest ones are the Chapel Amanati, year 1360, and take its name from the tomb of Ligo Amanati, a teacher in the University of Pisa, and the chapel aula. The Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta, the Duomo, was designed by the architect Buscetto in year 1604 and shows, in its brightness, the influence of various styles and cultures. Byzantine, but mostly Islamic, components which testify of the power of the maritime republic of Pisa at that time. During trips to North America and the Middle East, Pisan sailors could admire the characteristic of the different world they visited and were deeply influenced by them. Look at the column within the Duomo. They will remind you of similar ones you will find in many mosques. The cathedral was consecrated in year 1118, despite a fire in year 1595. Within the cathedral, many important works are still preserving within, including the great mosaic of Saint John the Evangelist in the year 1302 by Cimabue, simply stunning. The pulpit, a masterpiece by Giovanni Pisano, year 1302 to 1310, which was dismantled between 1599 and 1601 and reassembled and returned only in 1926 to the cathedral, with some original pieces missing, including the staircase. Bas-relief executed by apprentice of Giambalona, works by Beccapumi and Andrea del Sarto in the chancel. A major fire damaged the church in year 1695. The 12th century bronze door by Bonanno on the western side were destroyed and replaced by 17 center copies. The original 12th century door in the transept facing the bell tower survived the fire, but the current door is a copy too. The original by Bonanno, known as the St. Rainier door, is now on display in the Cathedral Museum. Medieval Pisa was a seafaring and trading nation, and the cathedral shows influence from all parts of the known world. Islamic architecture contributed to the airy feeling of the church, with high lancet arcs and alternating layers of white and black marble. Much of the church was financed from the spoils of wars, with some art, including the griffin on the roof, simple war booty. The statues and decoration on the outside of the church are mostly copies. The original works are now mostly inside the small Cathedral Museum. Campanile, Leaning Tower of Pisa. The famous Leaning Tower of Pisa was never intended to be a defensive tower. but rather the bell tower, campanile, for the adjacent cathedral, a function it still fulfills today, in addition to being a major tourist attraction. The tower is just over 58 meters tall and currently inclines by around 5.5. It has 207 capitals. Most had to be replaced since its construction due to damage from especially thunderbolts, in addition to the pressure of its leaning. All the major buildings on the Field of Miracles in Pisa leans to some extent. It is easily seen in the Leaning Tower, but it is fairly obvious in both the Baptistery and Cathedral too. It is 273 steps to the top of the campanile. The construction of the Tower of Pisa dates back to year 1173. Its fame is owed to its inclination caused by the shifting ground in the subsoil, and for this reason, works were often interrupted throughout its construction. In year 1275, the tower was enlarged with the addition of 3 levels, while the belfry was added only in year 1350. The Leaning Tower is 55 meters high and is inclined 5 southward. One has to climb up 294 steps to reach the top. Each of the level has gallery and arcades, except for the last ones, where there are 7 bells. The tower began to lean during construction in the 12th century due to soft ground which could not properly support the structure's weight, and it worsened through the completion of construction in the 14th century. By 1990, the tilt had reached 5.5 degrees. The structure was stabilized by remedial work between 1993 and 2001, which reduced the tilt to 3.97 degrees. A 2001 study seems to indicate Diotislavi was the original architect due to the time of construction and affinity with other Diotislavi works, notably the bell tower of San Nicola and the Baptistery, both in Pisa. Construction of the tower occurred in 3 stages over 199 years. On January 5, 1172, Donna Berta di Bernardo, a widow and resident of the House of dell'Opera di Santa Maria, bequeathed 60 soldi to the Opera Campanile's Petratrum Sante Marie. On August 9, 1173, the foundation of the tower were laid. Work on the ground floor of the white marble campanile began on August 14 of the same year during a period of military success and prosperity. This ground floor is a blind arcade articulated by engaged column with classical Corinthian capitals. Nearly 4 centuries later, Giorgio Vasari wrote, Guglielmo, according to what is being said, in the year 1174, together with sculptor Bonanno, laid the foundations of the bell tower of the cathedral in Pisa. The tower began to sink after construction had progressed to the second floor in 1178 year. This was due to a mere 3-meter foundation set in weak, unstable subsoil, a design that was flawed from the beginning. Construction was subsequently halted for almost a century, as the Republic of Pisa was almost continually engaged in battles with Genoa, Lucca, and Florence. This allowed time for the underlying soil to settle. Otherwise, the tower would almost certainly have toppled. On 27 December, year 1233, the work Benvenato, son of Gerardo Bottisi, oversaw the continuation of the tower's construction. Surviving earthquakes. At least 4 strong earthquakes hit the region since year 1280, but the apparently vulnerable tower survived. The reason was not understood until a research group of 16 engineers investigated. The researchers concluded that the tower was also able to withstand the tremor because of dynamic soil structure interaction, or DSSI. The height and steepness of the tower, together with the softness of the foundation soil, influences the vibrational characteristic of the structure in such a way that the tower does not resonate with earthquake ground motion. The same soft soil that caused the leaning and brought the tower to the verge of collapse helped it survive. Guinness World Records. 2 German churches have challenged the tower's status as the world's most lopsided building. The 15th century square leaning tower of Saez and the 14th century bell tower in the town of Bad Frankenhausen. Guinness World Records measured the Pisa and Saez towers, finding the former tilt to be 3.97 degrees. In June 2010, Guinness World Record certified the Capital Gale building in Abu Dhabi, UAE as the world's farthest leaning man-made tower. It has an 18-degree slope, almost 5 times more than the Pisa Tower, but was deliberately engineered to slant. The Leaning Tower of Wanaka in New Zealand, also deliberately built, leans at 53 degrees to the ground. Pisa is more than just the Leaning Tower, but not much. The town has surprising little to offer the tourists. Once you have seen the tower and the other famous buildings, Duomo, Baptistery or Baptistery Chapel, and Camposanto, according from God's guide, Firenze and Toscana. And that says it all. Although not many people or guidebooks are, as a matter of fact, as Tim Jepson in the quote above. This is the attitude towards Pisa found in many of the guidebooks. The town is way down of the list of sites in Tuscany. When the town does get mentioned, it is almost exclusively because of the monumental buildings on and around Piazza dei Miracoli. Even the Tuscans themselves have been known to say that were it not for the tower, Pisa will not be a tourist attraction. Tourists are, as a rule, good at following the guidebooks and therefore only a tiny part of the million who visit Pisa actually get away from the obligatory Piazza dei Miracoli. When they do venture down the side street, it is normally in search of a cup of coffee or a meal. There is a vast gulf between the Pisa the tourists see and the rest of the town. Unlike other places in Tuscany, Pisa is not there for the sake of the tourists. Agriturismo il Colle. Pisa was a large and important town in the Roman Empire, but despite the town's importance during this period, there are no Romans remain in Pisa apart from some sarcophagi and spare ruins. Its position as an important maritime power did not change during later period of Gothic and Lombard dominance in the 6th to 8th century, under Carolingian rule in the 9th century. Pisa was an important town, and with the start of regional government in the 11th century, the town's role as maritime power in the Mediterranean was strengthened.
You want espresso or cappuccino?
Cappuccino.
Non usciamo più di qua. Posso pagare? No, pago io così io e... No, se mi fai pagare questo,
I'm delighted to tell you that you are important patrons and subscribers for the last month. I would just like to thank you for being a part of YouTube channel. I'm very grateful for your continued patronage because I wouldn't be here without loyal audience like you. I appreciate that you have stuck with us. Thank you again and have a great day.